right, everyone, and welcome to this episode of Queeny Chats with your girl, the Queen of NE. And today I have a very special guest. I'm so excited to welcome him to the show and chat with him today. I have none other than the one-man militia, Mr. Matthew Justice. Matthew, how are you today?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm great. I'm so excited. For my listeners who listen to me on my other show, DYWTSB, we know Bro Rogan from Paradigm Pro Wrestling, and he asked us to watch and review a show, Heavy Hitters Tournament. Me and Pops did that. And that was my first kind of introduction to you. And, it was really cool for me to zero in on somebody. And I was like, wow, who is this guy? I've never seen him wrestle before. And it made me want to look you up and find some more matches and kind of see what you're all about. I heard your, theme music. I'm a rock girl myself. So I was like, ooh, what's that? I'm really interested. And then I watched you wrestle and, you made a new fan that day. So I started to watch some of your other stuff. And I'm so hella thrilled that you are here talking with me today.
Hella, that's a new one. All right.
Yeah.
I wrestled Bradley Prescott the fourth, right?
Correct.
I'm pretty sure I beat the shit out of him with a bunch of beer cans, right?
Yes, you did. Yep. And a trash can.
Man.
It was marvelous.
A lot of things. I remember that. I believe we almost got kicked out of the arena in Jeffersonville for that match, actually. Poor Gary, the promoter of PPW, is always dealing with the backlash of because I jumped off the claw machine. The claw machine and I hit him with a trash can lid. Apparently you're not allowed to climb on the claw machine. It's a strict no climbing on the claw machine rule at PPW. So I broke that rule, which I had no idea it was even a rule in the first place. That's definitely a interesting match to see me for the first time.
Yeah, breaking rules that you didn't know were rules. Yeah, I mean, how would you know that though, unless someone specifically told you, like, hey, don't climb on the.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'm kind of a maniac. You can't really hold me back. I see something, I'm gonna climb onto it, most likely, jump off of it, throw somebody off of it.
Right.
So.
Well,
for anyone who's seen some of my more recent stuff, I think they will understand completely what I'm talking about.
Yeah, for sure. That's exactly right. I've been watching some of your stuff and I'm like, oh man, he's probably he's gonna climb. Okay, great. He's gonna do that. Yep. It's engaging though, that's for sure. And one of the reasons I really enjoy watching your stuff. So for me, my introduction to you, I just wanted to know a little bit more about your story, which is why I invited you on the show, just to kind of, get to know you and have the listeners get to know you as well. So they can see your talent. But for my first real kind of foray into this, what was it that really captured your attention about pro wrestling as a profession? Like, did it have to do with you being a fan as a child, like so many others, or is it a combination of things? What really led you down this path and say, yeah, you know what, this is for me?
I think I grew up in like most people that are wrestling now or fans now. The bulk of them, we all grew up through the Attitude Era. I mean, obviously, when I was little, like every single other person, I was like, "Oh, I want to be a wrestler." Mm-hmm. I think at one point everybody said that, but I don't think I really wanted to be a wrestler then. I think I just saw it and was like, "Oh, I want to do that."
Right.
But once I got a little older, maybe like beginning of my teenage years, and I would delve more into ECW. I really wasn't a teenager. I was like 11, but whatever. I think I saw the match that made me go from being like, oh, like a little kid who says he wants to be a pro wrestler to like, no, I actually want to be a pro wrestler, was Rob Van Dam and Jerry Lynn from, there was two of them in a row. It's like Hardcore Heaven 99 and Living Dangerously 99. And those were the matches that made me go like, okay, like I actually want to do this. Like this is like sports. It's like being an athlete. And that's like what made me seriously like, go on like the primitive HTML frames internet and find like the local wrestling promotion in Cleveland that was called Cleveland All Pro Wrestling. And I started following that. And then that's what, once it came time to like being old enough to actually go train and be a wrestler, I had already known about Cleveland All Pro Wrestling and just seeked out the trainer. His name was JT Lightning. And then I was like 15 years old and I went to some strange random building in the ghetto of Cleveland, and here I am almost 14 years later.
Yeah, that's wild, isn't it? When you think back to when you first started, you were 15, and like in high school. And
yeah,
what was your experience like stepping into that wrestling training? I can imagine in the ghetto of Cleveland, you're going to this random building and you're probably not quite sure what to expect, I would imagine. What was that like for you to walk through the intricacies of becoming what you are now, this professional wrestler for 14 years?
Yeah, well, keep in mind, too, I was like, the first time I ever went, I believe I was 15.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't have a driver's license. So my mom, bless her heart, she drove me there and sat in the parking lot for like 2 hours while I had my first tryout to be a pro wrestler.
Wow.
But it was like, like this sketchy. Well, I mean, if anyone's ever heard of Turner's Hall, it's like a famed wrestling building in Cleveland. But I say that loosely, but you know what I mean.
I do.
But it's like an abandoned school building basically. So it's like, not very well upkept. Basically at the time was 2005 or 6. It was 2005. The only attendance they had were like bingo and pro wrestling,
Yeah.
So you can imagine the upkeep of the building.
Sure.
And I'd actually been to a show there too. Like I'd been to a few of the Cleveland All Pro Wrestling shows, so I was like familiar with it, just not like when it wasn't full blown like show mode. So like you walk in, all the lights are off, you're like in the dingy school hallway, and then it's like, oh, all right, like I meet these guys, like I'm 15 and these other dudes are probably in their late 20s, early 30s. There was like, I think like the only two people that are worth mentioning, I don't mean that negatively, just like that people would know, it was Ray Rowe and JT were there. That like he was training with JT at the time, which Ray Rowe's in WWE. He's in the I don't even know what their name is now, the War Raiders.
Yes.
The Viking, the War.
The War Raiders. Yeah, we don't really know what they're called either.
What's their full name? I don't know what it is now. But yeah, he was there. He was training with JT at the time. He had been wrestling for maybe, I don't know, a year or so. But there was a few other guys, but all guys who have kind of faded off or just aren't known. But yeah, so you can imagine, like I'm like this little kid, and there's like these, in my mind, there's like giant dudes. JT's kind of crazy. If anyone's ever heard his stories, he's a wild guy. So then it's like the training range, like not even in the school gym. It's like in the basement, like the boiler room. It's like this strange, so it's like, oh, come on down to the basement and get ready. And like, I don't have like, what do you get ready? Like I was wearing what I was going to wear in the ring. I had some Converse All-Stars on, some basketball shorts and a t-shirt, like
right.
That was it. Like, so, that was pretty intimidating. I think that's what you asked, right? Like, what was
right? Yeah, what was your experience?
Yeah, it's pretty intimidating. I mean, it's pretty intimidating, obviously. But I went. It was like training was like 2 times a week. But since like I said, like I didn't have a driver's license, my mom was taking me. So I mean, I would go like once a week. I think she'd take me one day a week, sit in the parking lot for like 2 hours, read a magazine, and then obviously that got to be like a little bit too much. So like I trained for maybe like a couple months, and then like summer hit, like I got out of school, so it was like summertime, and like my mom wasn't able to like continually take me, so I kind of faded out for a while.
Mm-hmm.
And then so I stopped, so I trained for a couple months, and then I came back like the following year. I finally got my driver's license, so I was like, at this time I was like, it was the summer between my junior and senior year in high school, so like I finally got my driver's license. So as soon as I got my driver's license, I started going back on my own, and that's like when I finally fully like finished my training. And I trained, I think I ended up having my first match in September of 2006. So that was like, I had just started my senior year in high school, like in August of 2006, so.
It's really cool to hear, like, your mom brought you. That's so cool. And then you got your license and you bring yourself, and then your first match, and then you're still a senior in high school. So I can imagine that you're still doing school and then you're wrestling. But how did it become really your career from there?
Well, I never really wanted to go to college. I hated school. School's, everyone has their own opinion on it, but I never really was interested in school. I just scraped by, did whatever I had to do. So besides wrestling, the only other thing I'd really done, I was in a band. I was in a couple of bands in high school. I like music. So like entertainment, obviously, it's like music, wrestling. It's kind of the same. Being a rock star, being a wrestler, the same things. Just I don't even like half the time I draw more inspiration from like frontmen of bands than I do wrestlers nowadays. Anyways,
That's cool.
But no, like I never really. I just had it in my mind I was going to be a wrestler. I told myself I like vision quested it, like I was going to wrestle for the WWE. That was all there was then. In the mid to late 2000s, that's what there was. So I mean, I just told myself I was going to be a wrestler. And like I was wrestling in high school. I mean, I missed dances. I missed like all kinds of stuff. To be like all my friends, they partied or did whatever high school kids did on the weekend. I was taking bookings, driving to like middle of nowhere, West Virginia or Pennsylvania, wherever it may have been. I always had it in my mind. I went to the gym every day. I took bookings on the weekends, and those were the primitive days, I guess. It was interesting. It was before the internet. It was before social media. It was like, which is really unthought. Like it's not really thought of now. Like there is guys like me. There's guys that are older than me, which is even more wild. But then like no one really thinks as they see me. I'm like hitting my stride now. Everyone's fine. Like I'm most known I've ever been. I believe now probably at least independently underground. I mean, you really don't think. I mean, I started wrestling and there was no internet. There was no social media. Like things operate completely differently than they do now. You know what I mean? So it was just that's what I wanted to do. So
yeah, you put in the hustle, you put in the work, and one of my favorite phrases is ask, believe, receive. If that's what you want, then you got to go get it, and you don't make any apologies, and you go straight forward. And I'm going to believe this is what I'm going to do, and that's it. And that's really admirable. Not a lot of people, can put forth that kind of dedication to make that work. And to your point, I'm similarly aged to you. I think I'm like a year or so older than you, and we grew up in a time like we didn't have Instagram and we didn't have Twitter.
No.
We had dial-up internet, and like we didn't have the things that are at our fingertips now. We can go to our phone, which is how I'm connected with you right now, and we can do this, which it just wasn't around at this time period. And those who are, your age and a little older really have that kind of, I don't want to say grassroots, but it kind of is experience with like, well, I'm going to promote myself and I have to get out there and do it this way, which, it's a little, I wouldn't say it's easier now, but it's more accessible now, and there's more options out there for you to connect with, a whole bunch of different people, different promotions, and wrestle anywhere you want, really.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think like social media. There was like maybe MySpace was a thing at the time.
MySpace.
Maybe Facebook. Maybe Facebook was like you had to be in college and legitimately be in college to have a Facebook.
That's right.
It wasn't like now. Like you wrestle now, and it's like you have a match, and I just based matches off of like your social response. Like you have a good match, because you come back, your phone's blown up, you have a million notifications, people talking about it. People talk about the match like days later, especially if it's on a streaming service. People find out about it. It has like it just kind of grows and grows. So but it wasn't like that back then. You didn't wrestle, and like that's kind of like, especially now you get more and more bookings. It's like, how do you judge which bookings to take, which ones not to take? Well, it's like, here I always get a response on social media, like even if from people that aren't there, like there's people that see it at home. Back in the day, it was just like you just took your booking. There's like, there's some guy there with a camcorder filming it. But like they might talk about you on like a local message board, and like you might get some feedback from like a veteran in the locker room. But like that was it. Like there was no like, in my mind, there was like no scale. It's just like, I don't know, you just spun the wheels, and got the experience under your belt, and then hoping that like the right person somehow saw you, which was like, is very like implausible, but it's how it worked, I guess, at the time.
Definitely different than it is now. And speaking of that, you were hoping that the right person saw you, and I know that you had your time with the WWE, but how did that experience, come to be, and what was it like for you now that you can reflect back on that? Now, what was that like?
You're talking about the WWE?
Yeah.
To touch on it, like we were saying, we just kind of hoped to get in front of the right eyes and everything. After a few years of wrestling, they would do like random tryouts at OVW, which had formerly been the developmental territory of the WWE, and it was in Louisville, Kentucky, or Louisville, Kentucky, however people say. And So they had just opened Florida Championship Wrestling in Florida, so they had closed down Deep South and OVW as their developmental territories, but WWE would still randomly do like a tryout there, and they would
Mm-hmm.
like you'd have to pay. So it was always like a real hot topic, like if it's worth paying for these tryouts or not. But like, so I was young. I think that was probably 2009 or so, 2010 maybe. So I'd been wrestling for 4 years, and I went to a tryout at OVW. John Laurinaitis, Johnny Ace, was the guy who was like scout and talent for WWE at the time. He was the talent relations guy, and so I went to a tryout at OVW, and I was young, but it was a good experience. Definitely worth the money. Got a lot of pointers, a lot of just not just like directly, but just from watching and seeing how it went.
Sure.
And then that was it was February 2010, and this was like how primitive it is compared to now. Now they like the WWE Performance Center just has a website. Anybody, you don't even gotta be a wrestler. Like you can just fill out a profile. You could be an Instagram model, fill out a profile, and they'll see your photos and they'll like you, and then they'll be like, you'll just get an email and be like, you want to come to a WWE tryout at the Performance Center? And this is like, this is something that guys that have been wrestling forever have been like dreaming of doing, and like I'd just be an Instagram model and just look cute and have a good body and or whatever it may be, just some interesting fact about me, and they'll just call you down and you'll have to go to the Performance Center to have a tryout. And it's true, but hey, whatever. So back then it was like, so you go to this tryout and like that was all via the internet. That you just upload your stuff right now. So back in 2010 or whatever, they would literally they had paper cards and they'd fill out your info like by hand, and then John Laurinaitis would take the binder with him and he'd be like, all right, I'm gonna fax this stuff to the office in Stamford, Connecticut, so they have all of the info and all. So like then you could be considered for like if they were going to sign you or if they want to bring you in as an extra if they're going to be in your area and like want to bring you to TV. So like, and that's just crazy to think that they were just taking binders full of information with like photos and then like handwritten information and like faxing it to the office. And now you can just go on your own computer and apply yourself to get a tryout. It's just like how far ahead it is. But no, so I did that. It was cool. And then later that year, they ended up having another one. So I went back. And then, like, obviously, it's like any other thing. It's like a big game. It's time to play the game, Like, John Laurinaitis remembered me. I got to go to – I got a lot of extra games out of that, too, like that whole year, 2010. I think it was actually like 9 or 10 times. I think the first time I ever went to WWE, it was like May 10th, 2010. It was at Raw at the – Mellon Arena in Pittsburgh, and I wrestled Alberto Del Rio in a dark match. So like at the time he was like just debuting. He was still like Dos Caras Jr., his character from Mexico or whatever, and he had just taken off his mask and he was just about to debut. Like a couple weeks later, he debuted on TV as Dos Caras or as Alberto Del Rio. So that was cool. But like, so all through that, I did a bunch of extra things. I was on TV a few times. I wrestled on Superstars. I had just a bunch of like, as you would call like being a jobber. I was just a jobber a bunch of times on. I was like I said, that was a dark match at Raw. I wrestled on Superstars. I wrestled on SmackDown once. But so I went back to another tryout. John Laurinaitis was happy to see me. I got more extra work. That was at the end of 2010, like December. Then they started doing these tryouts at FCW in Florida because that was their new developmental territory, and you could actually pay to go to a tryout at the actual training center, which was pretty cool.
Right.
And I did one of those in the summer of 2010 in between the two OVW tryouts. And same thing. It was kind of like, middle of the pack. I did all right. But then they had another one in March of 2011. And I was like, at that time, you're young. You don't really know how to like. That was when the business was really starting to change from like the old school. So all the guys that were guiding me were kind of out. Their mindsets were a little bit outdated. So you don't really have anyone to like go to or to like bounce your frustrations off of. And I was like kind of upset. And I told myself I was never going to try to go to the WWE again. Like I was spending all this money on these tryouts and like, I was learning and stuff, but I wasn't really getting anything out of it. I'm like, well, I need to focus on other things. There's plenty of other avenues in wrestling to be,
of course,
maybe not at that time to be successful like there is now, but there's still other avenues. But just randomly, I happened to get booked as an extra, like, right before the tryout. And then I was like, well, I can't not go to the tryout now, because if I'm an extra and they see me at TV, and then like 3 days later I'm at this tryout, like, it'll be perfect. So I literally spent like all the money I had, because those tryouts costed $1,000, the ones at FCW.
Oh my
So
God.
like this, and like, then you have to fly yourself to Florida too. Like at the time, these were like all paid, so like a flight, I think at the time the cheapest flight was like $200-300.
Sure.
And so it was like, I think I might have, if like, say the trial was $1,000, the flight was $300. Like, so that means I think I had like a total of like $1,317 in my bank account, which is pretty impressive actually. Now I think about it, but like, so I literally went to Florida with like $17 in my bank account, like, to do this tryout. Luckily, I had a friend who lived in Florida, and I would sleep on his floor, like, whenever I do these tryouts. So that was cool. But like, no, I went to this tryout, and I'd already been to one. I'd already been to the two other ones at OVW, and I just like, I don't want to, like, I killed it. Not to, like, that sounds like real cliche, but for better or worse, I just like killed it. I mean, I like was, I did well, and they had kind of like insinuated to me that like I did pretty well there, and I could tell from my previous experiences, like, where I would see from afar the people that they were like catering to, and the people that they were like, most interested in, and I could tell that like that was me this time. I just didn't want to believe it, because I'm like, nah, I'm just too confident right now. But then like I was literally, it was just like, so that was it. Tryout ended. I'm like, damn, like I did really well, and I still didn't get signed. Like, still nothing happened. So I went home, and I just remember being all like sad and like not bitter, but like just kind of like sad, and just like, well, what the hell do I do now? Like, like, and it was literally like, so I got home from like the tryout on like, say, a Monday, and like that Friday I was like on my way to a booking, just driving along, like me and a couple of guys in a car. We were somewhere in West Virginia. I'll never forget. It was like Friday at like 5:30 in the afternoon, like some random fucking unknown private number calls me, and it was the WWE, and they're like, oh, like, you did great at the tryout, like, we want to sign you to a developmental contract, like.
Jeez.
So that was pretty wild, because like very, like, the most roller coaster of emotions you could ever go on, like that was it, because it's just like the whole time, and this is, like I said, I've been Vision Questing this since like 2007, basically. Like, once they opened FCW, I'd be like, yep, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to go wrestle for the WWE and Vision Quest, living in Tampa, Florida, and everything else, And then here I am years later. It's 2011, and finally I'm like getting offered the chance to do it. It was pretty wild.
I can imagine that would be wild, especially after all the work you put in and what you were, I'm assuming what your goals were, right? And you said you Vision Quested it, and this is what you were going to do, and there it is, right? What a cool experience for you, and a phone call that probably just rocked you a little bit.
Oh yeah, I was like, luckily I wasn't driving. Luckily somebody else was driving, so it was, because I don't know if I've been able to contain myself, but no, that was cool. That was the happy part of that story, because after that, I mean, once I went to FCW, I mean, not to sound, I mean, it's been so long, so I've had plenty of time to process it all, but just in the moment, when I got signed, I was 22. I think I signed my contract like 3 days after I had turned 23, that I actually signed the physical contract. Like, so I was young. I never lived away from my parents' house. I never moved from home. I never lived on my own. Sure. So like, not only did I get signed, I mean, I moved away. I moved, 1,000 or so, however far away Florida is from Ohio, 1,000 miles at least. Yeah, so like, I didn't just move. Most people, they go to college. They go to local college or something. They live in a dorm. Their parents come visit them every weekend. Like, no, I moved to Florida like on my own. Packed up my Kia and like drove it down, whatever fit, like to Tampa, Florida, and like didn't see my parents for a year. Didn't see anybody for a year. So that was like not only just and wrestling becoming a job, like, an everyday thing, the highest level it could get. I also was just learning to like live on my own and like, be away from my family and my friends, and not that, like when you're like in your 20s, like you really care about your family, but you know what I mean? Like,
I do.
It's just your entire comfort zone that you've grown up, that you've grown up in. So it was a big thing, you know. And then just like you said, it's the highest level of competition in wrestling. I mean, training. I mean, the guys I was training with are all the guys who are on top in WWE now. They're all superstars. So I mean,
Wild.
it's just like that was the level it was at. It's just, you know, I was young. I didn't know how to handle it. There was a lot of things that a lot of things I wasn't ready to experience, really, I guess. You know, I put all my efforts into getting there, but maybe there was some other things along the way I should have been more focused on enjoying or experiencing before I forced myself to get there so fast, you know.
Sure.
It's like now it's all things I'd be ready to handle, but then just being young, you know, just finding your place in the world in general, not just in wrestling. I was there for almost a year in 2011, and then I ended up quitting. That's the one thing I don't think a lot of people know nowadays, because it's been so long.
Sure.
But as my name's getting back out there, as I'm kind of making a little name for myself on the indies, in the underground, as I like to say, people just hear like, oh yeah, he was in WWE once, but no one really knows what happened. I mean, I just really hated it, to be honest. I hated it. Like, for the last couple months I was there, I like hated it, and I was not happy. And then one day I finally just didn't show up, which sounds terrible. You know, it's like it was like TV taping day, and I was like, you know what? Like, fuck it. Like, I hate my life. I'm miserable. Like, this isn't fun. Like, I mean, I liked wrestling for what I liked it for, you know, certain things, and it was not what I wanted it to be when I was there. And so I just didn't go. I didn't go one day. You know, that was it. No turning back. I called the office, left a voicemail, and then I watched the movie Armageddon. Like, I was in the middle of watching Armageddon. Actually, I'll never forget. I love that movie. I was just like, I don't want to fucking go. Like, I just want to sit here and watch this movie. Like, you know, like that's how not fun it was for me at the time. Which just sounds implausible. Like, it sounds crazy. I'm sure there's a bunch of people gonna roll their eyes just off at that. Like, oh, he was in WWE. Like, he hated it. But I mean, now it's funny because now it's like the cool thing to do. Everyone hates WWE. the fans, the wrestlers, the journalists, everybody. Like, it's you know, like, oh, how many guys have quit or asked for their release, or, you know, now it's like, it's not like I came back to any fanfare on the indies or like got booked by every known promotion there is because I quit developmental. Like, now guys will be in NXT or at the Performance Center, and they'll hate their life, and they ask for their release, and they come back and they're, you know, getting booked by every company in the world. They're, you know, people want to like praising them like they're some martyr. I mean, not to say, but I mean, I did that before it was even a thing, you know. There really was, like, there's other there, and I wasn't the only one. There was other guys too, you know, that did the same thing. Rampage Brown, he's a big name in England, and he quit before I did. He just went home to England. Well, you know, like,
I think it has a lot to, and it speaks a lot to, you know, there's a time and a place for a lot of things, and if you're not feeling something personally, you know, it takes a lot of guts to do that. To be like, you know what, man, like, this is not for me. I'm not feeling this. You know, this is not my path right now, and that's really, like, it feels weird to say, but that's like totally cool, you know. It's, I mean, it's not for you, it's not for you, you know. And that's really admirable that you were like, nah, this, like, I'm not feeling it.
Yeah, I mean, I could have sucked it up and just, you know, ate the shit. I could have ate the shit, basically. That's what I always say. I could have sucked it up and ate the shit. And yeah, I probably would have made a bunch of money, and you know, for however long. I mean, granted, I could have got released a month later. I could have got released 8 years later. I mean, I could still be there. You know, I could still be toiling, you know, spinning my wheels. I could be the main event of WrestleMania, or I could be some guy who is getting paid but sitting at home. You know, it's one of those things. You never know. But yeah, I could have done that. But I mean, it's not what I wanted. It definitely wasn't who I am as a person. There's a lot of things I've done in between that time that I would not have been able to do if I was in the WWE. And I'm not talking about wrestling things. I'm just talking about personal life things. Like, I'll think that sometimes. Like, I'll be at like a really good concert on like a Tuesday night, and I'll be like, damn, if I was in WWE right now, I'd have to be at SmackDown probably, or, you know what I mean? I wouldn't be able to do it. Or like just different life experiences, you know, not a vacation, but just traveling or seeing the world, which granted you would do with the WWE, but I'm talking like, you know, like driving a Jeep through the desert. Like, I wouldn't be able to do that. Like, I'd be wrestling at an arena in the city and then driving to another arena in another city.
Right.
But
well,
it's just a
change for your life, you know, when you do that schedule. Yeah.
So, I mean, it's just one of those things. And it's not like that was the end. It's not like a lot of guys, they quit, you know, and they're just done wrestling. Like, I never intended to quit wrestling. I mean, I went back in the I had to wait till my non-compete clause was up. But I mean, the minute it was up, I was at an indie show, and like you said, it's not like there was any big fanfare to it. It was just I went back and I did it, and that was in 2011. So I mean, it's 2019. That was 8 years ago. So it's almost 9 years now. So I mean, and it's not like, I just kept going as a grinder.
Yeah.
That's what I never cared about sports entertainment when I was a little kid. I don't even know if sports entertainment was a word. It was pro wrestling. So
right. And look what you've done, in those 8 years. You've had so many different promotions that you've worked with, and stuff that I'm now getting to see too as like a new fan, right? And so many other people who are making, as you're saying, you're making a name for yourself and a little bit again, and people are figuring out who you are and wanting to get to know like more of your story, and what's going on with you, and like where are you wrestling at, And I saw a couple of your matches with like Blackcraft and AIW, and for you wrestling at all these different indie promotions, I'm sure you have so many different experiences to share, but is there one promotion that you're like, yeah, like I feel really at home here?
I mean, yeah, I mean, I think every promotion has their own little creature comforts, but obviously AIW is home for me. It's it's in Cleveland. Or even if the show's not in Cleveland, it's somewhere in the area. After I wrestled for Cleveland All Pro Wrestling, that's the company I made my debut for. The first company that I really got like a big booking from after that was AIW in 2007. So I mean, they've spanned my career, even though there was a period where I was kind of like on the blacklist with them, but still the first 3 years of my career I wrestled there, and then the last 3 years of my career I've been wrestling with them every show basically. So they've kind of bookended my career in wrestling. And it's like they're kind of have the same path as me, that they started out as just some random local promotion. I'm just some random local wrestler, and now they're like legitimately one of the best wrestling promotions going. On the independents today, they're one of those names that you just hear, everyone knows. There's plenty of guys that have come through that are now big name stars. It's just it's just their resume speaks for itself. So, I mean, I think that's for me. And honestly, because, obviously, like, I've been wrestling for GCW lately. I just wrestled for Beyond last weekend. I've wrestled for all, basically the who's who of indie companies going today. And honestly, I mean, those places are all awesome. Those feel just as cool as AIW. It's just that without coming back to AIW in 2017, I wouldn't be where I am today, getting the opportunity to wrestle at all these other places. You know what I mean?
I do. Yeah, I definitely understand that.
Yep.
So for you, as you've been wrestling over 14 years, it's a long career. And is there one particular match that you're like, yeah, that was my shit, I rocked that? Like that was the one where you feel like the most, I don't want to say good about, but like you're proud of that one in particular?
It's hard. It's, it's funny because recently someone's approached me about doing a best of the indies about me, and I've been having to think of like my matches, and obviously it's easy to remember the recent short-term memory, the matches I've had the last few years, the ones that stand out. But then to go back to like those deep years, it's like it's hard to remember the matches that are, and that's not like it's just time. That's a lot of matches, a lot of time.
Yep, you have a lot under your belt. Pun intended.
But a lot of recent matches, my two that I probably am most proud of. I mean, I'm proud of all my matches in some way, roundabout way, especially as I'm debuting for new companies or new to a new company, and I'm having these matches that are getting the reactions that they are. But two that last year, 2018, I wrestled Nick Gage on my birthday at AIW. So that one was special to me because I was cool to wrestle such a high profile match at such a high profile show on my birthday.
Wow.
And Nick Gage is the guy that I'd always wanted to wrestle up to that point, and then for it to happen, and then for the match to be as great as it was. Like personally, it's like I always say I wrestle for myself. Like, no offense to the fans. Like, I wrestle like what young 10-year-old Matt would want to see. You know what I mean? So that's a match that if 10-year-old Matt watched back, he'd be pretty hyped up about. You know what I mean?
I do know.
That one, that was from Gauntlet for the Gold, March 23rd, 2018, AIW. So if anyone wants to seek that out on Smart Mark Video. And then I had a match at January of this year at a called Unsanctioned Pro in Columbus, Ohio, versus Mance Warner. And that was another one. You know, Mance is the guy who's awesome. Always wanted to work him one-on-one. And we had a classic, I would say, you know. Mm-hmm. So another one that if 10-year-old Matt would see, he would be very excited about. So those are two of my most recent memorable ones. Also, I guess I need to say this too. I'm sure everyone at this point has seen, even if they're not aware that it's me, the clip of me DVDing Josh Bishop off the balcony.
Yes.
So if for anyone who wasn't aware, that is me. I'm the guy giving the DVD. That match too is also pretty special to me as well. Obviously, well, for multiple reasons, because we are crazy and we didn't die.
Yes.
It's weird to think like that's like as close to, you know, going viral as you can get, which is pretty cool to be part of something like that. Sure. But also too, I'm glad that the match itself is actually a really, really good match, and it really turned out how it's not just an okay match with a crazy spot. It's like a really good match that just has an unnecessarily crazy spot in it that everything worked out too the way it was supposed to. But just the backstory of the match, like there's a lot more that goes into it for me that makes it special, I guess. Like we had a really bad, well, I'm sure in anybody else's mind the match is okay, but in me and Josh's mind, or at least in my mind, we had a match previous to that a month before, and it was terrible. Like I felt like I didn't have it anymore. I'm like, this is it. Like if I can't, when we were, you know, come time for that match, it was like if basically I said like if I can't have a good match tonight, like this is it. I'm done. Like I'm quitting. Yeah. And like however much truth would have been behind that, who would have known? But still, and I think Josh felt the same. Not he's young, but still, I think he wanted to, you know, prove that we were better than we felt after our last match we had together. And I think that's part of what maybe drove us to be crazy enough to want to throw each other off the balcony like that. But then just the fact, like I remember halfway through the match, like whispering, I guess I shouldn't really be saying this, but everyone knows wrestling's wrestling. But I think halfway through the match, I remember like whispering in his ear, like, "Oh, we got him. Like this is good," you know, like so. Mm-hmm. That one means a lot to me too, obviously. Just because I mean, in all these opportunities I'm getting, it's like that one spot, you know, that one clip of me going off the balcony just justified the other 13 years that came before it, you know. Not that I didn't get my respects where they were due, but right. Now just across the board in general, it seems like people have just like, I don't know, accepted me. So it's pretty wild, honestly.
It's gotta be. I can imagine that it would be. But now that you have these years under your belt now, and you know, what are your goals now? What are you going to vision board now? Where is Matthew Justice in 2 years or in 5?
Ooh. Yeah, that's a weird one because wrestling definitely has changed, you know.
Sure.
I did have a WWE tryout a few years ago at the end of 2017, which that was pretty cool, you know, after quitting and everything, for them to come seek me out to have a tryout, you know. So that was kind of cool. It was like kind of closed the door on that, just to know that like it wasn't a what if. That was pretty cool to be able to draw their attention again years later. But honestly, I mean, obviously, I think anybody should want to go to the WWE just for the money and obviously, if you want to be known as as an entertainer, that's the spot. That's where your name's going to be most validated. Mm-hmm. But other than that, like, I mean, I'm just really not into WWE's product. I mean, and that might be like a sentiment, you know, across the board now. But still, I mean, there's still some enjoyable stuff. There's still some cool moments and opportunities in that. But it's just not for me. It's not. I didn't become a wrestler because I want to be like in a 12-minute talking segment on Monday Night Raw. Like, I became a wrestler because I watched RVD and Jerry Lynn do, great athletic things, and with a vibe of a little bit of hardcore and a little bit, nothing crazy, but just and that's like what I feel like right now. I'm just currently, like, what I've been doing is like the most. It's like legitimately the most. It's closest to what I've ever wanted to do in wrestling is now, and it's like I can't be in ECW. Obviously, I can't. I can be in any, I can be in the companies that have an ECW vibe though, and I think I have the ECW vibe, and it's not just me like playing ECW. It's me just. This is what the environment I came up in, like what I, as a child. And I think this is like so whatever I'm doing right now is what I'm saying is what I want to be doing in 2 years and 5 years. I want to keep doing it. And whether that would translate into some contract somewhere, I mean, no one's ever going to let me get hit in the head with a chair on TV. So I don't want to be on TV then, I guess. You know what I'm saying?
I do know what you're saying.
Even the other day, Cody Rhodes just took that chair shot from Shawn Spears at AEW on their last pay-per-view or whatever it was.
He did.
And Tony Khan said they'll never have hardcore on TV. So, like, well, I don't think I want to go to AEW, not that I ever wanted to in the first place. Like, yeah, of course, like, give me money for what I love doing. But it's also like, I did quit the WWE for a reason. Like, the money was great, but it's not all about money in life. I've always said I'm a soul surfer. I want to have my hand on the waters of life. So, I don't think wrestling's not fun for me when I'm under the constraints of like, $1 billion company, or like we're on TV, so we can't do this, which is all bullshit. Anyways, there's TV shows that literally show like rape and murder, and like Game of Thrones, like, to be on TV and people, it's like but it can do, but we can't have hardcore on TNT. Like, are you kidding me? Like, have you ever watched like a show on TNT? Like, they got Animal Kingdom, all these other shows that have violence in them. So I don't understand where wrestling, like, and all those shows have advertisers, all those shows make money somehow. So I don't really understand where these wrestling minds come in, but hey, who am I? Obviously I don't have a lot of money. So, so I don't know where it's going to go, so, well, but I'm happy,
that's the point, right?
Yeah. I'm happy where I am now. I think, like I've never wanted, like, the music. I always compare wrestling and music. It's like the bands I listen to aren't on major labels. They're not signed to, some huge record deal. They're just grinding it out in the underground, playing small clubs. And, they ride their own wave. They have their own hits within the, whatever niche music they play. And they may, break through a little bit to the mainstream here or there, or maybe open for a bigger band that, but they've been doing it for 30 years, and that's what they do. They're respected. They have a cult following. And I mean, that's what I would like to do. I don't want to sell. I'm not trying to sell out. I'm not trying to, I'm not trying to go sign with the WWE and get some new fake name and go be an NXT and, do chair shots to the back once every 3 months and, part of some angle. Like, however cool, like, my paycheck will only be like 20 times as much, but I don't want to do that. You know what I mean? Like, it just doesn't sound cool to me. Like, but I'll gladly go jump off a balcony in a 300-person club in Philadelphia or, LA or anywhere, anywhere in between. So
I think that's awesome.
Yeah. I mean, that's how
you. It's you just authentically yourself, and that's kind of the things I've been noticing as I've been watching your matches, and now, of course, talking to you one-on-one. I get that real sense from you. You're just this is who you are, and you know, I think that's
I mean, I've been wrestling for a long time. I mean, I've been alive for longer, obviously. So I mean, I'm not changing. I'm not some young, impressionable, 20-year-old wrestler that's gonna mold themselves to be successful. I mean, this is just who I am. Like, I'm not changing myself to, go be in Ring of Honor, or like to, to go be like, I don't care if Cody Rhodes and the Young Bucks think I'm the coolest guy in the world and want to sign me to AEW. Like, it's gonna be because of me. You know what I mean? So if someone needs a maniac and a guy who's always gonna call it how it is and say it how he sees it, then that's me. But if not, I'm happy. I'm not sad. I'm happy doing it. I quit the WWE before anybody else quit the WWE. Like, I'm pretty sure I'll be all right. You know what I mean?
Yeah, man. You proved
So,
you could be all right. And that's like
yeah.
the a cool testament to your story, and that, hey, I did this, it was cool, but not for me, and I
Yeah.
still can make my career doing what I want to do on my terms.
Hmm.
And you said something a little earlier that really resonates with me, that you do it for yourself. And I think that's so very important. I feel like a lot of people, not just in wrestling but in life, entrap themselves in jobs or situations where they feel like they got to do it for XYZ reason, and they're not being authentic to, like, that's
No.
not what they want, right? And that's really admirable, and I respect you a lot for saying that and doing that, living that, really. You live your motto, so to speak.
Thank you. No,
For
absolutely.
real. Man, it has been my absolute pleasure to chat with you today. I really, truly thank you so much for sharing a little bit of your life and your story with me on Queen's Court for this little chat. If you would be so kind, would you please tell the listeners, where they can find you and what's up next for Matthew Justice?
All right. Well, my social media handles are all the same. It's at Thrash Justice, which is THRASHJUSTICE. That's on Twitter and Instagram. Those are my two main social media platforms that I use for wrestling. I do have a Facebook, and if you're creepy enough to find my real Facebook, I might add you, I might not. But, I prefer that you just follow me on Instagram and Twitter.
That's all right.
And I will be in many of towns, a lot of new companies that I'm debuting for, a lot of companies I'm returning to. So, like I said, just stay tuned to, Twitter and Instagram. Those are the two I mainly promote my wrestling on. So.
Awesome. Well, I know my listeners will definitely check your wrestling out and check out your socials. Of course, I will link it so they can find you easy. And again, I really appreciate your time.
Oh, I guess I should say, too, I do have a pro wrestling T-shirt store now as well.
Oh.
So you can search Matthew Justice on ProWrestlingTees.com after you discover me and realize, wow, this guy's crazy. Maybe I should buy a shirt to support him in case he breaks his back.
Oh, God, no. We won't put that out in the universe, but yes.
Nah, it's all right.
Definitely will get them to buy your T-shirt and support you. So absolutely, we'll link that too.
All right. Thank you.